All right, we are back. I am so sorry about that, guys. We are sometimes pirates like to touch things, and when that happens, we tend to lose out on our plans. Our we lose our broadcast. Okay, YouTube just takes away our rights, and that's not okay. That's frustrating. So, as I'm waiting for the casting crew to get backstage again, let me just welcome JB back in. Welcome back in, JB.
What's up, brother?
We got Richard making his podcasting debut. Uh, Richard has been in the league with me for a couple years now, and has been good friends with Mike. And this is his first time podcasting. So, your first words on air, besides like YouTube Shorts, what do you have to say?
What's up, everybody? I'm excited to be here. Really, truly. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. Hopefully, we'll get our few watchers in for us here in a moment. But as I'm trying to scramble to get things back ready for. Nope, that does not need to be in the show yet.
I gotta give you credit, Pat. While you do that, I gotta give you credit that you actually call him Richard. Like, I can't look at his name and not call him Dick Sickles. Like, the entire time that he was commenting during the potathon when I was on with Sal on the potathon, every time he commented, I was like, Dick Sickles. Dick Sickles.
Dick Sickles. It basically was Dick Sickles. And I remember when he made the change to the more professional look, and I was like, I'll respect that. If he wants to go by Dick Sickles, he can go by Dick Sickles.
You got to use what the good Lord gave you and your father, who didn't realize what he was naming you when he named you. It helped me get to a certain point, but I started to realize maybe it's time to be a little more professional, as you put it.
But it's got to be a good opportunity for some shit talking in fantasy when you like kill someone and you're like, suck on this dick sickle, you know?
Right.
Like, it's got to be a prime opportunity.
A little dick smack, just a little dick smack, you know?
Yeah. You know? So.
My college friends call that a mushroom stamp. Like,
yeah.
You hit them hard enough on the cheek that the mushroom was there.
I love
it. So, Scampers, welcome back. I'm glad you made it over to the new link.
Favorite cat.
I'm so glad you made it back. Jamie made it back.
I gotta say, I see Scampers everywhere. Everywhere. Cheers, Scampers.
All right. To kick off the show, cheers to me. Cheers to you. All the Rumboyz and girls. What it do.
Cheers.
Dilly dilly.
Dilly dilly.
All right. Let's get into the show sheet. We are into preseason football since we last chatted almost 2 weeks ago. We've had the Hall of Fame game. We had 2 games last night. We've had 5 games that have all kicked off before our show tonight, most of which are at halftime now or later. So we've seen most of our starters and our second stringers getting their run. What's good? What's happening? What's your big takeaway? What's your concern? JB, we'll start with you.
I'll leave the obvious to one of these guys because I would talk about it. A lot of people have been talking about it. So I'll leave that for one of these guys. I'll talk about Antonio Williams because watching the Giant game here in New York, obviously not a Giant fan, but I'm here in New York, a lot of talk. I know a lot of people are trying to get back on the Saquon train. You're getting them for a discount based off of where you were getting them, a couple years ago. So if you're going to take Saquon, you've learned your lesson, and you want to maybe handcuff him late. We thought we knew who the handcuff was, but I was kind of impressed watching Antonio Williams last night. So something to keep an eye on the next couple of weeks to see if maybe he's the guy you want to grab late in your draft as a handcuff.
Great point, JB. Dick, we'll head down to you.
Yeah, kind of taking low-hanging fruit. I have a feeling this is probably what you're talking about, JB. Malik Willis. Kind of where I was going with it. As far as the games go, I haven't really gotten to watch too many of them. I don't have a whole lot of preseason access. But Malik Willis, he was everywhere last night. He looked really good. It is kind of interesting. I don't think that Tannehill has to worry about anything this year, but you never know if the preseason continues and if things with Zach Wilson is looking as dire as they look. I could see the Titans maybe making a big trade. So it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Absolutely. David, what are some of your takeaways? What are you thinking here?
So when you say takeaways, you mean like takeaways of like a storyline that's been brewing throughout the offseason leading up to this preseason, or like based on the games we've seen thus far?
Yes, and
Yes,
whatever works for you. Whatever you got.
No worries. So for me, I guess the biggest storyline would probably have to be the QB battle that's going down up in Pittsburgh. That is fascinating to me because it's just like, me being a Bears fan and knowing the history that we had with Mitch Trubisky, I'm just looking up there like, oh God, is it happening again? Like with Mitch Trubisky, where he's just like, it looks disgusting right now. Some of the news I'm hearing about, like, is he going to win the starting job? Is it going to be Kenny Pickett? It's like looking at a car accident that you can't keep your eyes off of. It's just fucking, it's mesmerizing for all the wrong reasons. So I've got my eyes peeled for that. I'm very, very fascinated, but probably for all the wrong reasons as for who comes out of that QB battle. Right now, it sounds like Mitch is winning it. He's going to be starting the preseason opener coming up tomorrow against the Seahawks. But do I see him for sure guaranteed to win the job come week 1 in the regular season? I don't really know, honestly. And it's not because Mitch Trubisky doesn't have the talent. It comes down to the deer in headlights mentality. That is what plagues the quarterback the most in terms of why a lot of them tend to struggle despite having all the talent coming out of college. And that's what has been plaguing him thus far throughout his NFL career. So I am definitely keeping my eyes peeled for that one. That's the biggest storyline for me out of everything.
I hope you hit the one that I skipped because Dick kind of hit it, but didn't hit it. So I hope you do.
I was going to go with a little hype train I've been full steam ahead on for the last about 2 or 3 weeks, and Romeo Dubs just scoring his first touchdown, 33-yard over-the-shoulder basket catch from Jordan Love, who apparently can still throw the ball. Like the one time we saw him last year, it was... and it just makes me a little concerned as contract talks are, well, what do the Packers do? Do they sign a 5th-year extension? Do they let him hit free agency? Do they trade him? The questions are out there, and now you've got this 4th rounder in Dubs who's getting all of this praise from 4-time MVP Aaron Rodgers, who's never talked up a player that young in his career. And now we're wondering, is this guy for real? Is this 4th round draft pick the guy? Whereas they drafted Christian Watson to maybe be that guy. Mm-hmm. And Watson's injury has led to Dubs saying, give me the fucking ball and let me play and let me show everyone what I can do. Let me try and beat Jair in camp in one-on-ones and let me play.
Absolutely, yeah.
JB, I don't think we hit on yours.
We did it. And I'm curious now. I'm curious if anybody else is concerned now, because I'll piggyback on that with another rookie wide receiver and Treylon Burks, who everybody is expecting, even in conversation, as possible rookie of the year candidate. And a lot of that is because of the opportunity, right? You look at what they did by trading away AJ and then drafting him kind of as that replacement player. And you figure he's going to come in, have the opportunity right away. He's going to get the targets. He's, one of the only guys there. And he was buried on the depth chart. And then it's okay. Maybe the rookie's got to earn his way up. Fine. But then he had like 3 randos come into the game before he did yesterday. And he was in the game in the 4th quarter in the first preseason game. That's not what you expect out of a guy that's supposed to be a guy. So it was a little concerning for me. I'm wondering if you guys think the same.
Yeah, with Treylon Burks, man, I think there's so much expectation put on his shoulders after, moving on from A.J. Brown. Like, he's supposed to be the guy in year 1, in his rookie year, which is a lot to ask for. Even in this era, I think still, like, we're seeing a lot more rookies step up. But I just, I know there were concerns about his conditioning in the offseason where he was just, absolutely exhausted during certain practices early on I believe it was mini camp. And, but, and it's weird to say too, that he's going to be the number 1 concern. They have Robert Woods, who has been a proven wide receiver this far throughout his career in the NFL. But I think for him, he's going to be like a lot of people had lofty expectations that he'd be the rookie of the year. I never really believed that. I always felt that he was going to be someone who, if anything, he would find his footing probably at least halfway through his rookie season. It would take that long for him to find his rhythm and be able to be a viable number one threat. Compared to what he is right now, which I think is someone who, yeah, he deserves, his fair share of opportunities, but like, we'll probably see Robert Woods take the number one target share throughout the first few weeks of the season at the very least, before we see Treylon Burks come into his own. Because I was actually very high on him coming out of college, but I think he was on the lower end of how highly touted this wide receiver class was, and I think considering that fact, we're not going to see him, put up elite numbers for the first few weeks of the season.
Yeah, I'd have to agree, and mainly because like I think it's something that a lot of people hope for, but maybe don't always like. We see Justin Jefferson out there running it up his rookie year, Jamar Chase running it up there his rookie year, and stuff like that. And we're hoping for the same thing for all these receivers, but a lot of people do forget. It takes a little bit of time for those rookie wide receivers. It is a difficult position to learn, and so like I got high hopes for him and everything, but I agree with you, David. It's probably going to be a few weeks at least before he starts to get into a rhythm.
Yeah. And remember last year, Ryan Tannehill took a huge step back. So is he going to be 2020 Ryan Tannehill, or we're going to see a spitting image of disgusting Ryan Tannehill to some degree in 2021, which was a far cry.
I will say on the Ryan Tannehill note, he wasn't nearly as bad as people thought he was. Like if you go back and look at his fantasy points per game, he still was, I think, around quarterback 15. I think and it would have been 14 if you take out Geno Smith and his couple games that he played for the Seahawks. So still very good QB2 for those of you in super flex leagues. If you're looking for a QB2 on the cheap, Tannehill is someone that you could go to who had a deal last year with multiple games of Westbrook Ikine as his wide receiver one.
That's right.
And if you can do that, I think you can manage a little bit.
Dude, I'm drafting in the Polly's playoff league right now, and it's a super flex league. I had the number 2 pick. I got Mahomes as the 2, and then I waited, and I played quarterback chicken for QB2, and I got Ryan Tannehill in the 11th round as QB 23. And I don't like it because I don't like Tannehill, but that's a sick value there, and I had to take it at that point. I mean, we just kept passing on him for like 3 or 4 rounds, and I was like, all right, fine, I guess I'll take him.
Yep. What's more likely to happen?
11. In
11?
a super flex.
What's more likely to happen? Tannehill is the bottom 25% of quarterbacks in the NFL, or Tannehill is in the top 50% of quarterbacks in the NFL this year in fantasy points. He's got legs. He makes plays. He scores touchdowns on the ground. Yep. The points are going to be there. He'll find a way to get the ball in his receiver's hands.
I mean, I think he'll have a resurgence too, because he's also getting back Derrick Henry too. It's just, he's always kind of had a different. I mean, he's always had I don't think he's always had the strongest mentality compared to certain other QBs out there, which I think has affected him to some degree. So it's just about bouncing back mentally as opposed to physically, which I think the physical skill set's still there.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting too to see how much the game changes for him and everything, having Derrick Henry back in there and whatnot. Hopefully he's back to 100%. It's going to hopefully take off that bit of pressure for them to be able to open things up. Because as much as I like Tannehill, and I really love Tannehill, I think he does need that extra little bit of support.
Yeah. He's not a guy who carries the team on the back. He kind of works in tandem with the skills players he has.
Yep.
Jamie brings up Jeremy Ford. I believe
Ford, yeah.
Or sorry, I'm
no worries.
Reading is hard sometimes.
You're all good.
But I believe he broke off a huge run for the Browns earlier tonight. And then we have Drake London leaving early with a lower body injury. I believe was a knee injury.
Yeah. Zach Wilson too
limped off the field. And then a potential Zach Wilson torn ACL. It's being speculated by many that he tore his ACL, non-contact injury. And the Jets are back to sucking again.
We suck again.
We suck again. I tweeted that out earlier.
They
can't catch a break, but potential for Mike White or Joe Flacco, or maybe even I've already heard thrown out there Jimmy Garoppolo.
Jimmy G.
Getting
Yep.
traded, yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I would laugh my ass off if someone on the jumbotron at the Jets games just played that gif like right after he injured himself. Like, we suck again. You know? It's fucking hilarious. It'd be dark as shit, but hilarious. Oh god.
Oh, and one more rookie highlight. Did you guys see the video of Aiden Hutchinson singing Billy
Yeah.
Billy
Oh,
Jean?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
A little bit Billie Jean, right? Is that what he's
Once
singing?
you get the crowd into it, you know you're good. Once
Yeah.
the crowd got into it, I was like, oh, yeah, you're fine, buddy. You got this.
He had the
God.
whole Lions locker room going. He had the dance moves.
Mhm.
He was shaking it a little bit,
Mhm.
taking that rookie hazing a little well.
You guys got any favorite moments from Hard Knocks that come to mind, by the way? Sorry to interrupt, but just curious.
I haven't had time to watch.
Yeah.
JB.
I mean, like ever, like, in terms of like your all-time favorite moment,
I can't say that I do. I mean, obviously, everyone was looking at the Jamal Williams breaking the huddle from
That's
the
phenomenal.
clip from this past week, and
Yeah.
it shows the type of person he is. And you've seen it before. You've seen clips of him not only as a leader, but as a character, as a guy who, like, man, I would love to have this guy in my locker room, or I'd love to hang out with this guy. So, that was pretty cool to see again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, Dan Campbell, man, that message still holding strong in year 2.
It absolutely is. All right, let's get into topic number 2 tonight. This one was a question I had built for last year or for last week, and we had to cancel the show, so I want to get into it tonight. 4 wide receivers from the 2019 draft class have now gotten paid. Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, and A.J. Brown. One of these 4 is not like the other. A.J. Brown was signed after being traded.
Yeah.
The Tennessee Titans, who we just recently talked about, weren't willing to pay up for his contract that he was wanting. But all 4 of these contracts are really quite similar, with roughly $25 million a year averages, roughly $57 million guaranteed, give or take a little bit on the numbers based on how many years the contract is. Should A.J. Brown have a chip on his shoulder going into 2022 and beyond? Did the Titans do him dirty by doing the trade and sign and not just letting him walk? And we'll end it with, let's rank these 4 wide receivers as they move forward into their 5th years. David, we'll start with you.
So for me, we kind of talked a little bit about this on TBQ football. Was it last week or 2? I don't even remember. I think it was last week, I want to say. God, I lost track of time. David, for me,
I need to interrupt you. Can we drink for Hell No Hell Yeah? He is one of the biggest donors to this channel. Welcome back,
ahead.
Dude. Hell No Hell Yeah. Dilly.
I love the username. That's a good one. For me, Deebo Samuel, number 1. In terms of right now, as we're speaking right now, recently, in terms of recent play, Deebo Samuel, number 1. Number 2, I would go DK Metcalf. Number 3, I would go A.J. Brown. And then number 4, I would go Terry McLaurin. But this is subjected to change, honestly. I think the most talented of anyone is DK Metcalf. I think he's basically the fucking baby of Julio Jones and Calvin Johnson. He has that capability to be that fucking great. It's just a matter of DK wants, is going to do that. Like, does he want to do that? Is he going to be pursuing that? He very much can. Very much could be. He has the capability to be the greatest receiver of all time. He's that physically gifted. And bringing out the Seahawks ball, is that DK's signature? Is that DK's signature? That's what's up, dude. That's awesome, man. That could be the GOAT when it's all said and done. I'm serious in terms of wide receivers. He is ridiculously physically gifted. I was very disappointed. I expected him to take a step up last year, even with Russell Wilson only playing 14 games and being somewhat knackered with injuries. DK is supposed to take over games, and I didn't frankly see that. There were games where he was completely out of it, or he was catching one big play and then he would disappear for the rest of it. And it was disappointing, not even accumulating 1,000 yards, even with the extra game played last season. So he has the capability to be number 1. It's just about the mentality that's coupled with it. The guy who I think actually has the best has the best balance of being coupled with the greatest mentality and the greatest physical skill set in terms of the most overall versatile player is probably A.J. Brown. He was the guy I was the highest of coming out of that draft class in 2019. And I think he has the capability, just from the natural football acumen perspective and his physical skill set, to be the best. But it's just a matter of, is he going to stay healthy? Because that's something that's really held him back this far to reaching that first team All Pro status, which is what I expected too out of him. Him and DK Metcalf, are so ridiculously talented. They have the capability to be, coincidentally, because they're both Ole Miss Rebels, ruling the league as the best as the best two wide receivers to play the game. I mean, they really do have that capability right now to be the number 1 and number 2 wide receiver in the league. It's just a matter of health and making the most out of your situation. And for AJ Brown, I have lofty expectations for him now in Philadelphia. It's just a matter of health is the really biggest question for him.
Thanks, David. Over to you, Dick Sickles.
Actually, piggybacking off that, as far as the whole chip on the shoulder and whatnot, like I was going through it, and as far as the contracts go, he did get the biggest contract in the end of things. AJ Brown did.
Dick, I'm sorry to cut you off real quick. I gotta run and come right back because I just looked over and the baby is standing up and crying, and I'm on baby duty tonight, so I will be right back.
No worries. But yeah, no. As far as like the injury concerns, that they're real. And having the injuries the nagging injuries that he was having last year, holding him back and whatnot, and holding back the Titans in general. I kind of understood why the Titans went and made the trade that they did. I mean, the receiver class this last season was really good. They were hoping that they're going to be able to get somebody that can replace him in Burks. So it's definitely a business decision. Did they do him dirty? I prefer, keeping your guys around, the guys that are making you look good and stuff like that. AJ Brown was a face of their franchise, in my opinion. Derrick Henry's the face of their franchise, obviously, but AJ Brown was right up there too. And so I was really surprised that it happened. But like at the same time, I get it, and he still got paid in the end of things. As far as ranking him, I got Debo first. I would probably go AJ Brown. Like the rankings change depending on what their situation is and what their ability is. So like going off what you were saying, David, like AJ Brown, he would be the number 1 to me as far as athletic ability and whatnot. But given his situation and whatnot, I put him at 2 behind Deebo Samuel. And then McLaurin is 3rd, and then DK Metcalf I have as 4th. Depending on what happens with Seattle, though, if they can get somebody in there other than was it Geno Smith and help me out here, Drew Lock, thank you. If it's those 2, if that's all that they're going with, if they don't make any trades, then I'm putting DK Metcalf down a little bit because I don't trust them to really get him the numbers that he's going to need. But if they end up making a trade like what's being rumored and whatnot, then I'm going to move him up at least to 3rd. I might even move him up to 2nd, depending on who it is that they get.
Absolutely. There's a lot of moving pieces right now in the NFL as we're starting to see injuries starting to come in. We've been lucky over the last couple of weeks to not have had many major season-ending injuries out of players, especially fantasy players. Players with fantasy implications. Besides, now we're looking at Zach Wilson, but I think the trade market might have just increased quite a bit for Jimmy Garoppolo, and that will really shift the landscape. So, does Seattle make a move for Jimmy G still? Is that still a possibility? Because I don't think that team shifts from worst in the division to making a play at 2nd or 1st, run a playoff spot with the addition of Jimmy Garoppolo. He's not that guy. Whereas the 49ers got bailed out by defense. So for these four receivers, I think I've got, in terms of pure talent, DK, AJ Brown, Debo, Terry McLaurin. In terms of refined skills, it's Terry, AJ Brown, Debo, DK.
Really?
DK, I see DK as the most raw. Still coming into the league.
He is very raw.
As the most athletic guy out there. There's been times throughout his career he's just relied on his athleticism to make plays. It's like if we were to have watched LeBron James during a potential lockout season come to the NFL and just relying on his pure athleticism to carry him as an NFL wide receiver, which was rumored to have happened several years ago. But DK is a track star. He can do all these things. He can bail himself out for it, and go taking a downgrade from Russell Wilson to almost any other quarterback is going to be that for someone like DK. Drew Lock's not going to magically suddenly be able to drop dimes into his breadbasket as he's sprinting at 4.3 speeds. That's not just going to happen overnight. Meanwhile, guys like Terry McLaurin just got upgrades at quarterbacks. Debo is Debo in a Kyle Shanahan offense that's going to continue to improve and continue to be a yak monster because Shanahan schemes guys open, whoever his target is for the play. One of the things I've noticed about Kyle Shanahan's offense is no matter who's running it as quarterback, is its first look. It's the first option every time. Very rarely did Jimmy G ever go to a second or third progression. It's often that first guy, and then if it's not there, it's a safety valve and it's done. That's what their playbook looks like, and it's opening up. It's designed to open up that one guy, and if it doesn't work, you open up the safety valve and just dump it off. Which is why Jimmy G didn't get the credit as a quarterback there, because he was kind of. I think there's a bit of him being forced into this box as a quarterback for Kyle Shanahan's system that works with any quarterback, because Kyle Shanahan schemes it so that it's anyone can follow their first read and then throw it to a safety valve. It's almost dummy proof at times. So hopefully you add Trey Lance and you add someone with legs in addition to a decent to good arm. We'll see Debo continue to put up numbers there, and hopefully that team can stay healthy. They can be real competitors over there in the NFC West. All right.
That's actually really interesting. Just going off of the whole first read thing, I remember that was like one of the things when Jimmy Garoppolo came out. Jimmy Garoppolo came out at the same time as Teddy Bridgewater and Derek Carr and all them, and that was a huge draft for me, being a Vikings fan. You know, that was the big one that we were all looking at. What quarterback?
Post Ponder,
Finally moving on from Ponder, and we were all super excited and whatnot. And so Jimmy Garoppolo was actually one of the people that I was thinking that we would get late round. I didn't think that we would get Teddy Bridgewater. I didn't think that there was a chance that we would get any of the top three guys as far as Bortles, Bridgewater, or Manziel.
Thank God you missed on that one.
Dodge that bullet.
For real. Jesus.
But yeah, Derek Carr and Jimmy Garoppolo were two of the ones that I was watching. I loved Jimmy Garoppolo's ability to throw the ball, like that quick release and everything. But that was one of the things that his reading and whatnot, I wasn't entirely sure how it was going to progress to the NFL wise. So it's kind of interesting that he's with Shanahan, who's able to capitalize on that with that first read. I never realized that until you pointed it out. That's pretty cool.
Well, it's interesting with like a lot of these wide receivers. I think there's just each of these four wide receivers are so incredibly good at what they do. They each have the capability to be the best receiver in the league, if you ask me. And the way I look at it, like you look at Deebo Samuel, if you want positional versatility, you go with him. If you want high athleticism upside, you go with DK Metcalf. If you want the most polished wide receiver, you go maybe an A.J. Brown. And then if you want like emotional resilience, considering he plays in like shitty ass Washington, you go with Terry McLaurin. You know, like there's a lot of great arguments to be made with all these guys of how they can thrive. And you know, to be honest, it's kind of like it's just a jump ball. I could see any one of these guys dominating the league, no problem. It's a great wide receiver cast.
Yeah,
I had a dynasty league where it was drafted after it was before Justin Jefferson's rookie year. So these guys were going to their sophomore year, and I ended up with Jefferson, Terry McLaurin, A.J. Brown, and one more of the four. And no, I didn't end up with DK. I ended up with one other top wide receiver. I think I had Deontay Johnson on the team.
Oh, yeah.
Where I just rattled them off one after after another. And looking back at it, I'm just like, this team went hero running back with Christian McCaffrey and these 4 just stud young wide receivers to build around. And I'm waiting on that championship for that healthy CMC year.
Right. Hopefully this is it.
Hopefully
he's
it
finally
is.
back. Yeah.
Hopefully we can turn off injuries and just let the star power go.
There you go.
All right.
Championship coming your way, Patrick.
David got into this topic a little bit earlier as we were talking preseason football. But we have 3 QB battles going on right now. We have Pittsburgh, Seattle, who we've got into a little bit, and Carolina. Call your shot. Who gets the week 1 start under center for each of these 3 teams? So we're looking at Pittsburgh between Trubisky, Pickett, and Rudolph. Seattle with Locke and Geno Smith. And Carolina with Darnold and Baker. And they're saying that is still an open competition between the 2 of them. Dick?
Yeah.
To you.
So as far as Pittsburgh goes, I know David earlier, or we were talking about the Trubisky situation with being there in Pittsburgh and whatnot. But honestly, I think that he is better. He's the best option out of the guys that are there available for them. I've never been on the Trubisky bandwagon, but I'm interested to see what he does there. I think he's going to give the receivers their best chance to have a productive fantasy year. Moving on to Carolina, I'm going to skip Seattle for a second. Moving on to Carolina, I was doing some research on it for the show here, and as far as like Baker Mayfield goes or Darnold, I'm going with Baker Mayfield because he beats him. He has beaten him in every category. He's had more yards. He's had more touchdowns. He's had less interceptions. The only thing that Darnold has more of is more rushing yards by less than 100 and 5 more rushing touchdowns. So honestly, I expect Baker to win that out. And Seattle, I'm kind of taking a cop out here, but I don't think he's on the team yet. I really do think Seattle's going to make a trade. I think with the stuff that's going on, like we were talking about with Jimmy and whatnot, see what's going to happen there. I could see them trying to make a trade for him. If I have to choose between Locke or Geno, I think that it's going to be Locke is going to get the start, just so that they can see what they have with him first, because they already know what they have with Geno. That's the way that I would go with it anyways. I would want to see what I can get with Locke. And if it doesn't work out, then move on to Geno.
But do you see Jimmy G being the number 1 option that's not on the team to join the Seahawks and be the starter under center?
Right now, yes. I mean, as I was saying at the beginning of everything with the Malik Willis looking super, super good, I'm not worried about Tannehill having an issue, but if the quarterback market all of a sudden takes a huge jump, if things are happening with Zach Wilson, if he is injured and everything like that, it'd be really hard not to pull the trigger if you think that you have something with Malik Willis. You got to capitalize on those moments when you have them. And they obviously proved during the draft that they don't have a problem with that when they traded away AJ Brown. So,
seriously,
so yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but I could see it happening. And if that happens, Tannehill on the Seahawks, that would be huge. And that's why I had DK Metcalf. Like DK Metcalf would take a huge jump in my book if they got somebody like Tannehill over there.
Yeah, I like that. That's a sneaky good pick for sure. For me, honestly, I think I'm going to go Mitch in Pittsburgh. It sounds like he's going to be, like I said, he's starting against the Seahawks to start things off in the preseason. But I think it's a little dicey. Like I said, the QB situation, it looks grotesque right now. And I think Mason Rudolph, honestly, could be a dark horse candidate to be the starter week 1 under center. And I know that doesn't sound the prettiest. And to be honest, I'm gonna be real here. When going into that draft in 2018, when the Bears were pondering about who to choose for their future quarterback, obviously I wanted, at that time, not anymore considering all the off-field sketchiness that's gone on, but it was Deshaun Watson was my number 1, Patrick Mahomes was my number 2, and Mitch was not my number 3. Mason Rudolph actually initially was my number 3. And in hindsight, that was a stupid ass decision on my part. That was probably not the smartest mindset to have. Because if we're talking about deer in headlights, goddamn, Mitch Trubisky is head and shoulders above Mason Rudolph in that regard. Mason Rudolph really has been a deer in headlights throughout his career. This could be different, though. You wonder. They're saying he's been pretty impressive throughout preseason, maybe even more so to some degree than Mitch and Kenny Pickett, the rookie. It's just, I think, with Mitch having that previous starting experience bodes well for his potential future in Pittsburgh. And I think, don't count him out. Don't count him out whatsoever for that one. It's just overcoming that comfort in the pocket is the key thing, because he has the arm strength. I think he even has a stronger arm than Mitch, honestly, even though Mitch has the more accurate arm, overall. When we talk about the Seahawks, I think I don't know if they're going to go after Jimmy G, honestly, because I feel like if they were going to go after Jimmy G, it would have already been done. It's kind of random to do it right before the preseason. Still plenty of time before the regular season, but if I would have expected something to happen at least a couple weeks ago, right around the start of training camp, when he was starting to resume throwing again. Take the chance, do it then so he can learn the playbook, because it's not going to be the same type of offense exactly that Shane Waldron's running over in Seattle compared to what Kyle Shanahan is running currently in San Francisco. And then for the other QB battle, Baker Mayfield sounds like he's the runaway guy. And it kind of doesn't surprise me. I think Matt Corral could have had a legitimate shot at winning the starting job had it just been him and Sam Darnold and PJ Walker. Even if Cam Newton was still there, I would have still given it to Matt Corral. But because Baker's there, Baker's finally getting healthy with, nursing those 2 shoulder injuries that he sustained last year. And I think, honestly, the chip on his shoulder might do him well. There's some quarterbacks out there, they just need a change of scenery for them to finally flourish. And I think Baker Mayfield, I don't know if he's going to be that guy, but I wouldn't put it past him to be that guy potentially, or at least enough to where he starts in year 1 and earns that job over a rookie that's maybe nipping at his heels for that job, like a Matt Corral, who was a 3rd-round draft pick out of Ole Miss. So I'm going to go Baker Mayfield with that. But he's got to establish consistency on all fronts of his passing game if he wants to remain there longer than in 2022.
I have to laugh at what Scamper says. Mason Rudolph has to be blackmailing someone in the Steelers front office. He sucks so much.
He's got some.
Maybe that's what he's doing. Just spending a little bit too much time sucking and keeping his job there.
You got to stay in it somehow, right?
His coaches are just like looking over, about to call his ass out, and he's just holding up an envelope like, I got the fucking goods, man. He's just blackmailing their ass,
Like, who watched the Steelers-Lions game from last year?
Mm-hmm.
Watching Mason Rudolph have to play that game. He couldn't. He didn't. We talked about Najee not knowing the rules of overtime. That's on Mason Rudolph as well, to not have your guys knowing. Okay, this is the plan. We're getting up there and we're spiking the ball and we're gonna get ready to kick a field goal here. There were flashes his rookie year. There were flashes, believe it or not. I thought for a stretch, when there was the battle between him and Devlin Hodges, or not the battle, but the rotation between him, Devlin Hodges, considering the injuries that the Steelers quarterbacks had succumbed to in 2019, but there was no consistency out of him, and he panics when he's under pressure, man. It's like another version of Daniel Jones,
I still can't believe that we've spent this much time talking about Mason Rudolph. I mean, the guy's just straight trash.
We're probably beating a dead horse at this point, honestly.
And Pat, before I even give my opinion on any of these bums that we're talking about right now, I just made a trade in a Superflex Keeper League, and I want to get you guys' opinion on it because I thought it was a pretty good trade both ways. So one of the guys in my league sends out a message 2 days before we lock in keepers. You're allowed to keep 3 players. It's a 12-team keeper league, Superflex. And he goes, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow on the block for the best offer. So I'm like, huh? What? Did someone just get hurt? What am I missing here, right? So I go, all right, let me send him an offer. I'll get in the mix. So I offered him my Trey Lance and Tyreek Hill with my 204 and 804 for his Burrow Chase and his 5th and 10th. So I'm giving up prime real estate with my 2nd-round pick. Trey Lance obviously has a lot of potential, but who knows what he's going to bring this year. Maybe it's not till next year. Tyreek in a new situation. I think the upside's there for his side of it, getting a 2nd-round pick, getting 2 electric players. But for me, I felt like I had to pull a trigger on that, getting that Burrow Chase pairing there. Just, especially in a Superflex league that I'm just starting out in, a lot of quarterbacks are being kept. I've now locked myself a QB1 that I know I'm comfortable in, and now I can grab a Jared Goff or whoever is a QB2 later in the draft if I have to make up that second round pick by drafting a couple of more position players. What do you guys think?
Yeah. If I can go for honestly, I like it on if you can get Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. For me personally, when I look at Dynasty, there's two positions that I'm prioritizing over the others, and it's kind of backwards from how I would normally play a redraft, which is quarterback and tight end. Just because it's so hard to hit on those. And so if I can find somebody who I know is going to be a solid, like you said, you feel comfortable with Joe Burrow being your quarterback, your QB1 and everything like that. I like it was Justin Fields, right? Was your quarterback?
No, Trey Lance.
Trey Lance. I both of them. I like Trey Lance. I like Justin Fields. There's still a lot of question marks just because we haven't really seen them out there. And so if I have to choose between them, I want the safety that I know that Joe Burrow is going to give me. And so, I like it on your end of things. And I think that, like you said, giving him that second round pick definitely gives him that upside. So
I think keeper questions are really hard to answer because there's so many different ways that people play in terms of what round picks you're giving up for those keepers. Are you having to give up future picks?
Last three picks.
Last three picks
go to your keeper.
I'm taking your side all day. I think both of those guys are top 12 picks in the league. If you were to start the draft fresh today, those guys are both going in the top 12. If not, probably picks 8 and 11. Give me those two guys. The rest of the roster will come together. You'll make do.
Exactly. I'll figure it out. That's why I have faith in my ability to just figure it out even without a second.
What was the trade again exactly? It was Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. I mean, you're trading for to get those guys, and
so I'm getting Burrow, Chase, his 5th and his 10th for my Lance, Tyreek 2nd and 8th.
Yeah, I think for me, it's smart on your end. I think if I was the one inquiring that trade, I would probably be like a stubborn motherfucker and hold on for dear life for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I am so high on those guys, dude. It's like I need to be drug tested thinking about those guys because those guys are phenomenal, man. I think that connection may be the most dangerous connection in the entire league. Like they could rewrite the history books. We could see. I'm talking Randy Moss, Tom Brady type of shit, 2007 between those guys. Don't put it past them to do that. It's entirely possible. So I'd be a stubborn motherfucker and just hold on to them if I could. But I don't blame you for swinging for the fences with that one. Honestly, do it if you can. If he's gullible enough to do it, go for it.
Well, here's the thing. I think he looks at the upside, right? He's getting a second round pick who's going to be a playmaker. He's getting Tyreek Hill, who's a playmaker, and he's getting Lance, who can be a playmaker. So it's a floor versus upside play for him, right? I think he's looking at, these guys are at their peak probably. Like you said, Pat, they're top 12 players. Let's take a stab. Maybe Tyreek goes back to wide receiver 1 this year. And on top of that, he gets a second round pick to it. So I don't hate the deal on his side of things, but I love the deal on my side of things to get those 2 top 12 picks. Yeah. I'm pretty happy by it, and I think Corey's actually watching the show right now, so don't bash him too bad, guys. I think it was pretty decent.
Did this
hey, you remember what I said 5 seconds ago? I didn't mean any of that.
Did shout out Corey Spalla?
No, Corey. Corey, that was actually I met him in my SFB league. It's Corey Hurt. He's actually here from Long Island, also.
Nice.
Okay,
nice.
Yeah.
Well, you won that shit, dude. Obviously,
Hey, I guess we'll find out, right? Yeah. If Burrow, something happens to Burrow week 1 and Lance goes off, I lost.
Yeah, I know, right? Keep our fingers crossed. Shit.
Well, before JB gets into his take on these 3 shitty quarterback competitions,
and we're
gonna be looking. We got asked this question: Mike White or Marcus Mariota?
Mariota, baby.
That's not even close.
Yeah, it's Mariota. Yeah, they are who they are.
I love the White Knight, but Mariota all the way, baby. Mariota
there's a chance Mike White has the highest ceiling possible where he throws for 400 yards in a game, but give me Marcus Mariota 10 times out of 10. Scampers is apologizing to Corey for you, for all of us.
He's probably texting the commissioner overall, now, like, "Hey, remember that trade I sent through? Don't put it through. Don't put it through."
That's a fair trade. I think that over time we'll see what ends up happening with it. It's in the injury hands gods, or the gods of the injuries.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to what Trey Lance does. Really,
is he that top 8 guy, or is he that 15 to 20 range?
Such a big question mark for me. I love his talent, but I'm kind of an outlier. I honestly thought Jimmy G should have remained for just a couple games that started there, and then Trey Lance takes over because I wasn't still comfortable with how Jimmy G played last year. But
with
you know,
with Jimmy G coming off injury to his shoulder, there's no reason to start Jimmy G for this team that's making a run.
There are a ton of injury concerns. I do get it in that regard. And he's never healthy.
So Trey Lance is done for the night against the Packers. Went 4 for 5 for 92 yards and a touchdown, and then 1 carry for 7 yards. Compared
trade
to
value.
I know, right? Seriously, yeah.
Compared to where did it go? Jordan Love, who just had a second touchdown pass of the game, went 13 for 24 for 176 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions.
Wow. Jesus.
Can't
Christ.
take care of the ball. Like, that's like
God.
A lot of good things, but then if you're just playing risky with the ball against second stringers in the secondary, you can't do that. Not at this level. Not as a 30-year player,
dude. And this is in the
Jordan
first
Love.
half too.
Jordan Love, get some help.
Oh my God.
Find a new career.
Yeah.
State Farm is hiring.
Quit your NFL dreams.
You don't even need to be on. You don't need to be on camera either.
Oh God.
You don't need to be on camera. My face can be on camera. Your face can just be on business cards. Okay.
Patrick.
It really shouldn't be on a trading card. Honestly, please seek some professional help.
That's cold. That's cold right there, man.
Speaking
Jesus.
of needing professional help, let's get through this topic, please, because I really don't want to expand upon this, but I'm going to go with Trubisky winning the job because he just has the front seat. So, it's his to lose, which he'll probably lose at some point during the season, right?
It happened, yeah.
It's lock, I guess, because they tried to give it to Geno, and Geno was just god-awful, so I guess we'll see what we got in lock, and maybe he'll throw a couple of touchdowns and be okay for a little while, but that team's going to be awful. And I guess Baker, because Darnold sucks. So it's like, all three of these situations is like, I guess this guy's better, so he'll take it.
No love for the rookie with Matt Corral?
No, not yet. Not yet.
I got you.
Not yet. I think time will tell that it could turn to him. I don't think he's ready yet. I don't think he's ready to just jump in and take it like that.
Yeah, same here.
Matt Corral's a great stash for next year in Matt Corral.
Yes.
Great pod, guys. Good deal for both Lance and Hill with the 2nd over the 6th round pick. Let's see what happens. And Scott Fishbowl 12 makes magic happen. It does make magic happen.
My man, Corey.
I'm really sorry for saying that, Corey.
Don't apologize. You meant it.
I kind of did.
We don't apologize on the show.
Oh, shit. I love it.
I mean, I could talk shit about other professional athletes that I pissed off, but
you just went in on poor fucking Jordan Love. God damn. Yeah, that guy's an emotional basket case after this episode.
Oh my god!
At that point for you though, right, Pat? Like
the unnecessary drama that pick itself has caused.
I know
for
right?
Packers
Jesus.
Nation. Imagine,
I mean that created a whole new level of a shit show. Like that really did. That caused an earthquake in Green Bay, honestly, when they drafted him.
Like it was enough to put a fire under Aaron Rodgers to secure 2 straight MVPs, but was that even necessary? He was already tripping out in the jungles.
Oh no, it was.
I wasn't going to dare try
he's
and
gonna win those MVPs anyways. Yeah.
Would he have
it was
won it without that?
completely legal when he did it. All right, it was completely.
It's not banned under the NFL substance abuse policy. The Packers are in the clear. There's no need to be concerned. He's not going to have.
They just haven't added it yet. They're going to add it, but they just haven't yet. Oh,
NFLPA won't sign that, although they've signed away most of their rights under the current CBA. But that's a whole other thing, and we'll see that as Roger Goodell rules on Watson.
Yeah.
But it is time for halftime. We are ready to get into halftime, and we'll start off with Blake G Can Do, and then get into Monkey Knife Fight in the second half. So if you guys can turn off cameras, and it should automatically mute you, though. All right. See you on the other side.
Let me tell you a little story. Once upon a time, there was a monkey knife fight.
And one day they met one team partners in the NFLPA.
It's a match made in the pits of a monkey knife fight.
And everyone lived happily ever after.
Are you listening? This is big.
What is a monkey knife fight?
You know, it's thing monkeys, knives, you get it. Fantasy sports is monkey knife fight. And monkey knife fight is fantasy sports.
Monkey Knife Fight is daily fantasy.
Monkey Knife Fight in the house.
I am Monkey Knife Fight.
You are Monkey Knife Fight.
We are all Monkey Knife Fight.
Monkey Knife Fight.
You have the NFLPA behind the company.
It's exciting for me to be a part of fantasy sports.
When I think of fantasy sports, I think of beating all my buddies year in and year out and being able to brag about it.
We're not just partners in it.
We're owners.
And it feels awesome to be an owner.
I challenge you to a monkey knife fight.
We've been saving you a seat at the table, Monkey Knife Fight.
Welcome to the one team and NFLPA family.
Monkey knife fight. Welcome to the family, Monkey Knife Fight.
Welcome to the game, Monkey Knife Fight.
Monkey Knife Fight!
I challenge you to a monkey knife fight.
Monkey Knife Fight! Monkey Knife Fight, Monkey Knife Fight, Monkey Knife Fight, Monkey Knife.
Monkey Knife Fight, Monkey Knife Fight, Monkey Knife Fight, Monkey Knife Fight, Monkey Knife Fight.
I want to stab somebody every time I see that. I get so excited.
I'm like, yes,
That's
let's
exactly
do
what
it.
they're telling you to do, you know?
Let's make our money. So due to our technical difficulties earlier, I want to make sure we pay our bills so that our sponsors are happy with us. So Monkey Knife Fight, promo code Rumboyz, same as the All 22 promo code. We'll match you on your first deposit up to $100 for all new users. Monkey Knife Fight throws in their own additional $5 for you to play with. We make bank on Monkey Knife Fight over here at the Rumboyz. Robbie writes an article breaking down games to play. TD Dance. If you know who's going to score TDs in the game, you can make a killing on Monkey Knife Fight. Also, let's talk about the Stacks app. If you like the topics that you hear today, you like talking sports, you like talking to celebrities, you like talking to athletes, the Stacks app is for you. Stacks.io, available on Android and Apple. Link is in the description. And finally, All 22. It's fantasy football meets Madden franchise mode, where you are able to put together a team of 55 players, your own NFL franchise. You get points based off of PFF grading in addition to other stats to determine how your team fares for the week. You want to prove to your buddies that you know football way better than them. They may know running backs and wide receivers, but you know offensive linemen. You know the outside versus inside linebackers and schemes and all of this other, the intricacies of the game of football. You can show your league mates that you know how to do it better than them. Promo code Rumboyz gets you 40% off at checkout, and it's pricey. It's worth it. It's definitely worth it. It's worth it for your league mates. It's worth it for your friends to invest in this new product that will bring your fantasy experience to the next level. All right, let's get into the second half. That's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
That song was dope. That halftime show.
Yeah.
Oh,
halftime show?
absolutely.
So, yeah.
I love that song.
Yeah.
Can Do by Blake G.
Robbie gets the hookups with a lot of these promo songs. They're legit stuff, man. These are legit artists, you know.
Not gonna lie, kind of is getting me pumped. Just being the new guy here and everything, you know. Like, there's a part of this that was like, yeah,
I'm feeling that shit. Yeah.
There's something about hearing the intro coming on, and you're like, okay, we got like 30 seconds of this, and then we're going on air. That's things are getting real.
It's the juice flowing.
All right.
Yeah.
We're gonna go off to the side a little bit, and I want to bring up some betting odds. One of the things we do here on the Rumboyz Fantasy Network is we talk betting a little bit, but we're gonna talk. We're gonna call our shots with the AFC and NFC West. We are going to be taking a look at these betting odds and determining. You can place money on two of them for the exact order for the AFC West. This division has 4 teams that are all really vying for that first place spot. These teams are all making big investments into their future. We have the Broncos, who went after and got Russell Wilson. We have the Chargers, who added Khalil Mack. We have the Raiders, who went and traded for Devontae Adams, and the Chiefs, who's traded Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins. So all the other teams are really gearing up for the season, and the Chiefs said, we'll take Juju, and by Tyreek, we'll take the first-round pick from the Dolphins. So what are you guys thinking? What's your order for the AFC West this coming season? JB, let's start with you.
I actually have a futures bet. I have 2 futures bets in on the Chargers. I actually have the Chargers to win the division at plus 250, and I have the Chargers to win the AFC at plus 850. I thought those are pretty solid odds for a team that's on the rise, that has a ton of talent. So obviously my answer to this is that the Chargers win the division. I do think that Mahomes will do enough to have them in the playoffs. So I think 3 teams could make it out of this division, but I think I'm going to have the Chiefs slightly ahead of the Raiders and the Broncos still pulling up the rear.
So I believe you're looking at 10-28 or 10-29. So Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders, or
Chargers, Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos is how I'm going. So
Raiders, Broncos,
Chargers,
10-35.
Chiefs,
10-35.
10-35. Yep,
which would be plus
1800. I'll take it.
Ooh, you'll take that. Would you hedge it with one other bet to?
Yeah, I would hedge it with swapping the Chiefs and Raiders.
Okay.
So I would swap it with Chargers, Raiders, Chiefs,
10-32.
Broncos. 10-32.
32.
No, that's
No.
Chiefs first.
Oh.
Chargers, Raiders, Chiefs, Broncos.
Yeah, 10-43.
43
Oh,
plus
okay.
2,000. I like both of those. I would happily put 1 unit on both of those.
I'm looking to see if my site has it right now.
So these odds are courtesy of BetUS. I'm currently working with BetUS as they're been very nice to me. So we want to be nice to them. You'll see their stuff on my Twitter occasionally. David, what are you thinking?
Yeah, you see that second to last one at 1046?
Yeah.
Plus 3,300. That's me right there, honestly. I think the Chargers could win this division. I'm surprised people think the Chiefs, like that's the easiest money line, or that's the lowest money line on this whole entire betting list. I'm really shocked that people are that confident the Chiefs are going to do it. I think the Chiefs very much could finish 4th. And now, whether we could see a 4-team playoff division, I mean, it's entirely possible. It's technically possible to happen. I don't know if it is going to happen just because of how difficult and tough and versatile the AFC is as a whole. But the Chiefs' defense really has a ton of question marks, if you ask me. Losing Tyrann Mathieu in the offseason. A lot of youth that needs to step up, and Trent McDuffie, for instance. I like Chris Jones, who's really good, but like outside of that, and maybe Nick Bolton, I don't really feel very comfortable about this Chiefs team. because of that defense, because of the question marks at the receiving core, when you look at that receiving core, there's no one really that I feel legitimately comfortable with. I think it's very much possible that Sky Moore ends up wide receiver 1, whether that's a good thing that, he ends up putting up rookie of the year caliber numbers, or it's a bad thing where he puts up wide receiver 1 numbers, but it's not really anywhere near Pro Bowl caliber numbers. Either way, I could very much see that happening. And I'm going to lean towards, honestly, the Chiefs potentially finishing 4th because of that defense, because the wide receiver question marks, Orlando Brown Jr. is still holding out, their star left tackle. He wants a new contract and doesn't look like it's progressing too well right now. So how long is that going to linger? In a very tough AFC West and a very tough AFC as a whole. I love what the Broncos did in the offseason, getting a Russell Wilson. They're getting Cortland Sutton back healthy. They've got some young, electrifying, speedy talent at that receiving court, including maybe a ridiculously underrated 1-2 punch in Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon out of that backfield. They've got a nice foundation in that defense as well. Still to this day with Bradley Chubb, with Justin Simmons. There are a lot of guys to like in that defense. I think they could pull up with some sneaky wins. And I don't see how that's too far-fetched if you ask me. The only thing I can understand question mark-wise is the Raiders potentially finishing 2nd. And the question mark I understand is the offensive line. That's the biggest issue that's been plaguing them in recent years. They still have been in dire need of figuring that out, and they didn't really do a ton to address that this offseason. It's really just been Colton Miller or die in that offensive line. So if they can rectify that issue, there's no reason to put it. There's no reason to say that they can't finish in the top 2 of this division and legitimately one of the best teams in the AFC, considering the fact that they landed Devontae Adams and Chandler Jones in the offseason. They may have won the offseason out of everyone except for the Chargers, who, of course, take first in the division in the AFC West in my eyes. And because of that, I've got that prediction, honestly. The Chiefs could miss the playoffs this year, and it'd be the first time since 2014 they did so.
David, I want to play a correlation game with you, okay? I'm going to say some names here, right? You mentioned what Kansas City's got going on, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say Larry Hughes, Zadranus Ilgauskas, Daniel Gibson, Anderson Varejao, and Damon Jones. So if I say those names and play a word association game, where do you think I'm going with this?
You're talking about the 2007 Cleveland Cavaliers that went to the finals courtesy of LeBron James himself.
Exactly. And when you have Pat Mahomes on your team, I think you could take Anderson Varejao and Daniel Gibson and get them into the playoffs. That's where I'm leaning.
It's entirely possible. Like I said, a 4-team playoff division. Don't put it past the AFC West to make that happen. I've never seen a more stacked division in my life than what we've seen in the AFC West this year. It is that stacked. Okay, any one of those teams could be a playoff team, but because the AFC is so damn tough all around, when you look at the AFC East with the Bills, and when you've got now Jets they're an afterthought after today, but the Bills and even the Patriots, who I think could potentially finish last division, but still a very good last team in the AFC East. The Dolphins, who obviously had a tremendous offseason, the Ravens, the Bengals, who were in the Super Bowl last year. No matter where you look, this AFC is tough all around. And I think because of that there's going to be some costly wins that come down to the Chiefs not mitigating some of their defensive lapses, that they had last year. And even Patrick Mahomes last year, there were a lot of times where he was very turnover prone. He actually doubled his interceptable passes from 2020 to 2021. He went from 15 interceptable passes to 28 potentially interceptable passes. So there's been somewhat of a decline in his play. I'm not saying he's not going to be elite anymore. He's still, I think, the second best quarterback in the league easily. No doubt about it. But even with that said, we've seen even Aaron Rodgers have seasons where the Packers have mightily struggled. Where he'll play the majority of the games, but they're still not going to the playoffs. It's been a few years now since it's happened, but it's happened before. Even if you have an elite quarterback, it can't make up for some of the other issues that may be plaguing the team. And I think they could be exposed this season. It's a really hot take. Don't get me wrong. I think a lot of people are like, is this guy high off his fucking ass saying this shit? I don't blame you for thinking that way. But this AFC West, man, there's something different about it. And I'm a huge Russell Wilson believer, and I think he couples well with that young receiving talent in Denver as well.
I'm curious to see, going off what you're saying, David, of can Patrick Mahomes make wide receivers.
Right.
We haven't seen it yet.
We haven't seen it yet. I think he can.
Tyreek Hill was a top 10 wide receiver before Patrick Mahomes got there. Travis Kelce was a tight end 1 before Mahomes got there.
Well, and he's got a brilliant play caller in Andy Reid too.
I don't want people to mishear me and say Patrick Mahomes can't make wide receivers and can't. But he's never supported a wide receiver 2.
Mm-hmm.
He never. Sammy Watkins never became anything. McCole Hardman, we laugh about, and he's an afterthought in fantasy circles because he's supposed to be able to. He's catching passes from Mahomes, but he just can't.
Exactly.
He's nothing.
Yeah.
In terms of fantasy.
It's a good question. I think he is, like I said, he's the second best quarterback in the league after Aaron Rodgers. But I think like some of their issues may come back to bite them in the ass. Remember how often the Chiefs were constantly playing from behind in games in the first half of several games over recent years? That kind of stuff, those kind of tendencies, man, coupled with the bad defense, coupled with the question marks of the receiving core, coupled with maybe some potential health concerns in the running back core with like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, for instance, even though, it's going to be Ronald Jones who seemingly gets the majority of the carries. Those things, honestly, I think are being a little bit understated. And it's not like Andy Reid has been foolproof throughout his entire career. There's been years where he's taken a step back. And even Aaron Rodgers, like I was saying before, who I think is the best quarterback in the league, 2018, he was 6-9-1 during that year. 6-9-1. We're talking about the best quarterback in the league. I'm just saying, it's possible. It's possible. You could say I'm high off my ass. I don't blame you, but it's possible. Okay.
I think I like to talk about how teams will do what it takes when it comes down to when push comes to shove for winning.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that with the way Andy Reid's play calling changes as they reach the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes is scrambling out of the pocket more often. He's using his legs more. Over the course of an 18-week season, he won't do that. He won't be the playmaker than the top quarterback that he needs to be to win enough games at that point. I think they're going to end up early in the season getting behind in terms of their win-loss in the division. Not by a ton, but by enough to be like, all right, we're struggling here, and then an injury or two there, here or there could really shake up for the Chiefs. I like what Ronnie said. Patrick still has a wide receiver 1 in Travis Kelce. Yes, he does. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, he has a wide receiver 1.
Yeah. I know, and I say wide receivers. Travis Kelce's still there. I just mean wide receivers as opposed to receivers.
Welcome in, Ronnie. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. It helps us out tremendously with the YouTube algorithm. That way, more people can see your friend Dick's happy little head on his dick head.
Oh shit! Yeah, I'll be hearing that more later.
Not a football fan, but that dude in the hat sack me any day. And where do
so many nicknames I'm learning about today.
Where do you, Dick?
Oh God.
What are you thinking?
Kind of going off of what David was saying too. Like I had such a hard time going through this division and trying to figure out who was like. At first, I just tried looking at the names and going, who's going to win what, and that was not happening. And I went through it one by one, and honestly, there's so many times where like I would go through it and I would have the losses be set up for the Chiefs, and then I'd go through the Chargers and games that I had the Chiefs beating the Chargers in. I was like, wait, no, I think the Chargers are going to win those games, and it was going back and forth. So, my lineup, I decided I wanted to go a little bit of an upset here. I think that Denver is the more rounded team. I think I love their defense there, and I love Russell Wilson. I think that he's going to step in there and he's going to give that team the thing that they've been missing the most since Peyton Manning. I think that they really are going to go quite a ways this year. So I have them first. Kansas City, I think that Patrick Mahomes, kind of saying what you were saying, David, too. Also, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to pull an Aaron Rodgers and put the team on his back. I know that there's a lot of question marks around what receivers are going to do what there, but I think that it is a more well-rounded wide receiver room now than what it was before, where it was just Tyreek Hill. I think that he has more playmakers that he can target, and I think he's the kind of guy that's going to spread the ball around a lot. I don't think he's going to focus on just one guy. So I got them going in second. And I got Chargers coming in third, and again, Vegas coming in last then. And this isn't to say that I think that the Chargers or Vegas are bad in any way, shape, or form. Somebody has to come in third and somebody has to come in last. Like that's it's such a stacked division. It's so difficult to choose what's going to be where. I thought I was being a little spicy, but as I can see, I'm 1027 on this list. So I'm not that spicy at all.
It's a far cry from where I'm at, buddy. You know, like
right.
46, you know. Who do you think is wide receiver 1, by the way, out of Kansas City, Rich?
I think it's Juju, just because the reports that we're hearing out of camp and everything. I think that Juju and Patrick Mahomes are putting together some chemistry there. I think Sky Moore has a chance to run away with it a little bit, just with his speed and everything. But if I had to put my money on anybody, I think it's going to be Juju.
Okay.
Just from what we've been hearing.
I would agree, and I'm finding the ADP for Juju right now to be a solid value, and I'm drafting him where I can. I got him in Raz Bowl in the 6th round as my wide receiver 2. I hammered running back early, grabbed Darren Waller in the 4th, went Michael Thomas and Juju on the 5-6 turn, and I couldn't be happier. I'm waiting on wide receiver to get those two there. I think that was a solid start, and then I just pounded wide receiver a little bit. But to get Juju in the 6th round there, after guys like Elijah Moore, Brandon Cooks, Jerry Jeudy, like I feel like he's there in that range and has the upside playing with Patrick Mahomes to get even higher up there and into next tiers and next tiers. So I really like Juju. I'll give you a name to keep an eye on. As a Bucs fan, former Buck Justin Watson is not a very good football player, but he is a polished route runner. And Pat Mahomes looks for guys to get open. So should Hardman bust again and, people get hurt, if he makes that roster, he could end up being a guy you want to stash on the back of your deep league roster and, just kind of keep there as a name to watch. Because if he makes that roster, he's been establishing a little bit of a rapport with Mahomes. He went and worked out with Mahomes before preseason started, before – while they were doing their little off-site stuff, he went and worked out with him. He was developing rapport there, and he is a really solid route runner. That's the one thing, a smart guy, Ivy League guy. So he's a solid route runner and a smart football player. If he makes the roster, he's a deep name to know.
Yeah. What was the name again?
Justin Watson.
Yeah. I mean, coupled with Andy Reid, he's probably the best offensive play caller in the entire game right now. So it would bode well to be working with someone like that,
So Jamie asks, what's the over-under on wins for the Texans? Is it still 4.5? Take the over. If they split the division, wins and beat the Browns, Bears, and Washington, that gives them 6. Currently looking at BetUS, they don't have numbers for 4.5. They have 3.5 at -190 and -190 for the over, and +155 for the under for 3 wins or less. And then their next jump is to 5.5 wins. Over would be +200, tripling your money, and under would be -260. So that's right where Vegas kind of has them. They're right at that 4 to 5 win mark, wherever they might land. Ronnie, I agree. Chargers taking that division. I just like JB. I put some money on the Chargers back around the draft time. I think I got +250 or so, or around +250, +300 on the Chargers there. It was the best time. I think the best time to get them. Dilly, Robbie in the background, dropping the dilly for us. Everyone take a drink. Dilly, guys. I think the hardest thing about this exercise and looking at this list of all the possible outcomes is who comes in last.
Right.
Yeah.
Because so difficult. Yeah.
Yep.
Because Vegas thinks the Raiders come in last. And I don't think Derek Carr and Devontae Adams and their defensive line are that bad.
No,
it's not a bad team. We made our money off the Raiders last year as we rode them to a lot of overtime victories.
Mm-hmm.
But it's new coaches. It's a new regime there. Their interim head coach is now currently the special teams coach for the Packers, and things are looking better there. We're hearing much better things out of special teams for the Packers. Thank God. But I'm concerned with the Raiders, and with this division of can they beat out the other teams. So if I'm taking something here, I'm looking 10-28, 10-29 of Chargers leading the way, Raiders in fourth, and I might hedge Chiefs in second, Broncos third, and take both of those and feel decent about it going into it. Probably make sure to let us know that Raiders equals money. Raiders equals 2021 money. It's 2022. We got to make our money somewhere else. That well may have run dry. I'll hit up the Raiders for some player props as they underestimate.
I mean, Devontae Adams, Derek Carr, former college teammates at Fresno State. That's all I'm going to say.
Don't go off.
There's
the books
talent there, man. There's talent on that offense that can put up points.
Seriously,
they're intriguing. They're so intriguing.
Adams,
I just don't know the thing that keeps catching me is just the fact that the division that they're in, like it's so intriguing. They've gotten so much better, and I want there's a part of me that really wants the Raiders to run away with it, but I don't know if I could put money on that.
Seriously, yeah.
There's so many different teams and so many different avenues. It's going to come down to who can stay healthy.
Yeah, health is going to be huge in that division. It's going to be huge in that division.
Which secondary can break up enough passes to get their defense off the field?
The Raiders have an underrated one with Trayvon Mullen and Trevon Mayrig as well. Those are two legit DBs for that Raiders secondary. Honestly, I think people were sleeping on them.
And when it comes to getting teams off the field, I don't think the Chiefs can do that. I don't think that defense is losing the Tyrann Mathieu. They don't have something to get them off the field. They don't have that guy that says, all right, we're putting our hand in the dirt and we're getting the fuck off this field and putting the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands.
Chris Jones is great, but that's the best case to really disrupt behind the line of scrimmage. That's your only bet, if anything. And I like Chris Jones, but it's not like we're talking about LT here. It's not like someone who's just going to take over completely.
The Raiders are going to pass all day. That O-line can't open up running lanes.
Yeah, their O-line does have a lot of concerns. Yeah,
it looks a lot. It reminds me of like late 2000s, early 2010s Detroit Lions team, where you have Carr in the Stafford role and your Devontae Adams is going to be Calvin Johnson, and then Hunter Renfrow being Golden Tate, and just having to throw and play catch up in the fourth quarter. It's going to make for some good games where they're just chucking it from behind and getting back in the game and tying it up or taking the lead with 3 minutes left. But can that defense do enough to win some games for them?
When you said late 2000s Lions, I was like, oh fuck! Do you mean like the 2008 Lions that were 0-16? I was like, shit, dude, that's gonna suck.
The joys of living in Michigan is I get to like be like the 2008 preseason champion Detroit Lions.
Yeah, they were 4-0 in the preseason.
4-0, everything was looking good, and then they followed up by 16 straight losses.
Talk about getting the rug thrown out from under you, honestly, from going undefeated in the preseason.
This one, let's go with the NFC West. This one's a little bit more clear, but let's hit this one a little bit faster here. Obviously, the lines are shifted a lot. Where line number 8 or 9 was the equivalent of the bottom 16 for the last division for the AFC, but we're looking at plus 3,300 odds by a 1033, 1034, as opposed to the very bottom. So, Dick, we'll start with you. What are you thinking for this division?
Yeah, and I'm kind of in the same range that I was before, but so I got LA winning it. I think that they're gonna carry that division again and run away with it a little bit. I think that I got Arizona coming in second, and that's not because I think that Arizona is going to be elite. I think they're going to be good. But I think the 49ers are going to take a little bit of a step back, kind of what we were talking about before with Trey Lance and whatnot. If he does step up, then that's awesome. But I kind of have a feeling that the second-year quarterback, he's going to have a little bit of growing pains. Not that it says anything about his play in the end of things, but just, growing pains happen. And so I think that they're going to come in third. and then I got Seattle coming in last. So
that
I'm in that
was
10-27.
10-27. I like it.
Yeah, for me, yeah, I got to go 10-27 as well. Rams, Cardinals, 49ers, Seahawks. It may be the safest, but damn it, yeah, I think the Rams got stronger this offseason, grabbing Allen Robinson for my Bears. We goddamn, do we miss you, Allen Robinson? Please come back some way. Just finagle your way to get the hell out of LA and come back to Chicago ASAP because we're in dire need of you. Bobby Wagner as well was a great land too. So I've got I think the Rams are back in full strength and ready to have a chance of repeating. I'm not saying they're going to repeat, but I got them number one. Cardinals, I think re-signing Kyler Murray, getting that out of the way so it's not a distraction throughout the season was really nice. They're finding ways to fine-tune that team. Even with DeAndre Hopkins out, getting a Marquise Brown in the offseason, I think bodes well for them. Zach Ertz came along tremendously last year when he joined the Cardinals halfway during the season. I think that's going to be a sneaky good opportunity. And the defense, it's got a little bit of work to do. I like what they're doing in the secondary a little bit. They're getting JJ Watt back healthy, but I think they'll be fine enough to where they could win at least 10 plus games and potentially make the playoffs. Or at least they'll at least go above 500, I'll say. And then 49ers, I think a third. A lot of question marks, I think, with Trey Lance. There's some health concerns. I'm not trying to say I expect health issues to come about, but they there's a chance they could because that's been a consistent issue for the 49ers. Defense still has to air certain things out, I think, to some degree, like when in the front seven, even though there's a lot of things to like with Fred Warner and Eric Armstead and Nick Bosa, obviously. And then Seahawks, they may be the worst team in the league this year. I mean, if you're trying to trot out Drew Lock as your starting quarterback, power of Christ compels you, for fuck's sake.
My brother in Christ. This is the NFL.
like that. Good luck with that, honestly.
Yeah.
And I know they have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett still, but the O-line is still a major issue. They got Charles Cross, but I don't think that does enough to mitigate some of their issues. The defense, man, they let go of their leader, their defensive quarterback, and Bobby Wagner. That is going to leave a huge gaping hole in that defense. I don't know how they're going to plug that in. I like Jordan Brooks, but even though he even racked up even more tackles than Bobby Wagner last year, I don't think they were as efficient as what Bobby Wagner does in terms of the type of tackles he's able to accrue. And moving on from DJ Reed, I think is underratedly costly. So I think the Seahawks are destined to finish last in the division. So I'm going with a safe bet at 10-27.
All right.
I'm also 10-27, but I can make a case for 10-29 and say that the Cardinals could win that division, have the Rams in second, and then have the 49ers and the Seahawks finish the way that we expect them to. I think if Hopkins wasn't suspended, I would bet 10-29 right off the bat. Yep. But I think that with him coming back where he does, it still gives them enough time to have that end of the year run. Like last year, they had the beginning of the year run, then they fell off the cliff. So now with him coming back, maybe they recharge and they do it opposite this year. The Rams are winning the division, they're leading the division, and then all of a sudden the last couple of weeks, here come the Cardinals and they take it over on them. So I can make the case for 10-29.
Interesting.
So I'm going to go a little bit differently than everyone else because I think it's going to come down to some late season shenanigans. And there's two head coaches here that one's kind of owned the other one in the regular season. And that's Kyle Shanahan has had Sean McVay's number for several years now. Despite the Rams being the better teams, going into into January when the Rams finally beat them, Kyle Shanahan was 7-3 in his 10 games against Sean McVay. He's had McVay's number. So I think it's going to come down to how do they fare head to head. So give me 10-26 with the 49ers taking first place in the division, Rams following it up, Cardinals coming in third. I think the DeAndre Hopkins suspension really plays a big role in this for this team. I think it might end up costing them the playoffs. But I think all three of those teams end up with some free wins against the Seattle Seahawks. Now the question becomes, what do we do with the Seattle Seahawks? How many wins does this team get? If you think they're getting 2 or less, you're looking at plus 750 odds. Under 3 or less, you're looking at plus 400.
I take that.
Still plus 190 for 4 or less.
I would totally take that.
I'm totally on board to take that.
Yep.
And then you're looking at just straight safe money at under 6.5 at minus 165.
Oh, absolutely. I
will slam the 165. Throw $10 on that. Get 350 back extra. That's worth it to me.
Absolutely.
It's an investment. It's a stock that you're expecting to increase by 30%.
So I'm laughing because like we were talking about this a little bit before, Pat, about how much I don't really bet too much on sports when it comes outside of fantasy football.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would totally smash the hell out of that. Where am I going to smash the hell out of that? Where can you tell me where I need to go?
BetUS. BetUS.com.pa/sportsbook. I'll have a link in my bio on my Twitter or checking my pinned tweets, and there'll be a link to the sportsbook. We match 125% first deposit bonus, and as long as you play through 10 times, you get the full bonus, and then you can withdraw it. Basically, they're saying you can't just deposit it and then take the money out the first chance you get.
Pat, I like your 1026. I just wish it was better odds.
Oh,
like
yeah.
That's a bet that I would take. Would the odds be better?
That's what I think is going to happen, not what is the best bet. I think that's something for people watching that are newer to betting or don't bet much. There's things that you think are going to happen, and the odds don't match the risk, and we stay away from that. Then there are things that we don't think are likely to happen, but the odds say if we bet enough, one of these will hit, and it's worth it. If you think by something in God's green earth that the Seahawks win the division,
take all those down,
and you're just you got visited by your future self in a DeLorean, and he's got an almanac for you, and all you could see is the Seahawks 2022 in first place.
Mm-hmm.
You're betting all those, and you're coming out. You're taking loans.
Mm-hmm.
And you're making your money.
Nah, that dude's got to be like lobotomized or some shit. Honestly, if he's predicting the Seahawks to win it. Let's be real here, you know.
I feel like if I make that bet and I win that bet, I'm getting my shins broken. Like, did you know that?
Oh fuck! Yeah. Someone's holding a gun to your head if you're making that bet. You know? Seriously. Oh god.
All right. Thank you guys for playing that as we looked at the Wild Wild West and how we think things are going to shake out this year. I'm going to skip the question about the Steelers, and we'll come back to that at the very end.
Okay.
But we're going to look at name a player that you are looking to sell because of their name value. So these are players that the general fan knows for fantasy football. They are familiar with these players. They've heard them before, so usually not rookies. Who are you looking to sell and trade off of in your home leagues because they have great name value, but not the actual production just isn't there for them? JB, I think we're to you to start.
I'll say Tom Brady. Not that I don't love Tom Brady, because obviously I'm a Bucs fan and I want Tom Brady to be awesome. He has tons of weapons now with 3 number 1 wide receivers. My fear with Tom Brady is the offensive line. The Bucs lost both of their starting guards in the offseason, and now their starting center's hurt. The backup to the starting center went down in practice yesterday. So the offensive line is already questioned coming into it with some gaps in the middle. Losing Ryan Jensen, if he's gone for the season, I don't know if we have an update yet, but losing him is huge, man. That's the anchor to your offense. That's the guy who, is in charge of calling the signals for the offensive line, making sure Brady stays protected and stays upright. Donovan Smith at left tackle has played better, but I still don't think he's great. I mean, he's played better than he did a couple of years ago when he was awful. He was like a swinging door. Tristan Wirfs is great at right tackle, but you can't just get by with a good right tackle. Like, that interior of the offensive line really worries me. And Tom Brady's the type of guy that if he's seeing pressure up the middle at 45 years old, he's throwing the ball away. He's throwing the ball into the ground. He's throwing the ball to the sideline. He's getting frustrated. He's throwing his helmet on the sidelines, and that's going to affect him. So if the offensive line can't hold up, I don't think he produces the way that he's being drafted to produce.
And it's really rough for him to week 1. He's looking at Micah Parsons sprinting up, blitzing him up the center.
Yep.
And not to be. No, I'm just gonna pass on that joke. That's not worth it. I was gonna make a 9/11 joke, and it would have fallen.
Oh God.
But yeah, I absolutely agree with you there, JB. I think Tom Brady is looking at coming off the QB3 season that he had last year. He's the GOAT. He's the name value. He's the guy that the casual fan knows and they want to draft. He will be taken in the first round of some fantasy drafts for home leagues this year. And if you draft him in like the 8th round, where his ADP is, you can for sure sell him for someone that you can take in the 5th round.
Yep.
Yeah, throw him in one QB league. Throw him in as just kind of a nice little add-in to get that over. Yeah, I like it.
This is such a tough question, man. This was really a head scratcher for me because, like, someone who's highly touted, who we need to be dismissing for this upcoming season, fantasy wise. I think honestly, I might stay with the same team that JB was talking about, but go a different position, and that might honestly be Mike Evans. Believe it or not, I know people are going to look at me like I'm crazy. I'm not saying that he won't have a decent year. I think, though, that I'm serious. I don't think you should put it past. Yeah, I'm dead. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. I'm sorry, Chris Godwin and Julio Jones, I think could potentially account for just as many fantasy points, if not maybe even more, than Mike Evans this year. I personally think Chris Godwin, I know people love the talent, the physicality, the speed, even that is coupled with that physicality into Mike Evans more than what Chris Godwin possesses. But I think Chris Godwin's been the better receiver since he's been there in Tampa Bay, believe it or not. And if you look at the numbers, if you look at the completion percentage, in terms of how that connection has been established between whether it's Tom Brady or if it's James fucking Winston throwing the ball to Chris Godwin, it's been legitimate, even more legitimate than I think even Mike Evans when Chris Godwin, of course, has been healthy. Now, he's obviously dealt with some health concerns, but it sounds like he's ready to go for the training camp. He was cleared to go for training camp, and now it sounds like he's ready to go come season time. If that is the case, and he can stay healthy, man, I wouldn't be shocked if they both accounted for more fantasy value than Mike Evans. I know a lot of people consider him a borderline 1,000 yards here, but that's the thing. Even with Mike Evans, he's had years where he's barely made 1,000 yards. I know he's a potential lock for 1,000 yards. I'm just saying in comparison to the other receivers, this is a tough question to ask because I was like, who would you really say? Like, I mean, because we're talking about someone. I'm not even saying he's going to struggle. I'm just saying that like he's going to maybe potentially take a backseat, even to Julio Jones. I'm hearing reports that Julio Jones in training camp right now is 2019 Julio Jones, not 33-year-old Julio Jones who could potentially be washed up. 2019 Julio Jones.
I will say this for you, because prior to the Julio Jones signing, I was seeing Mike Evans go in the second round of a lot of drafts that I was doing.
That
At that ADP, I agree with you that he won't achieve that ADP.
That's all I mean. I think he's a very good receiver. He's a top 10 caliber receiver easily. No problem about that. But I don't know if we'll see as lofty production warranting all first team all-pro status like maybe some people could be expecting to happen, especially with Brady now coming back and, there is no Gronk anymore. So where are those targets going to go, when Gronk was healthy?
And that was the thing before the injury to Jensen and before the signing of Julio Jones, I was having this conversation with Kevin Tompkins in our Fantasy Besties group chat. And I was like, Mike Evans is going to get over 20% target share. He's going to get 1,200 yards. He's going to get the ball thrown to him all the time. Godwin's probably going to be ready, but maybe he's not full throttle for the beginning of the season. There's no Gronk. There's no third receiver. They're just going to force feed the heck out of Mike Evans. Now things have changed. So now I don't believe that could happen. His ADP there at like wide receiver 7, where he was going a month ago, was probably where his peak would have been prior to Julio Jones coming over. Now I think he falls down a tier or so, maybe even 2 tiers, because I think there's more competition for targets. Julio has looked good, and I don't think that Brady will have as much time as I thought he would have had a month ago.
There was some overcorrection. And from the year to year, how Mike Evans has been perceived.
Yeah, he's been disrespected his whole career.
For his whole career.
I've been fighting for him my whole life, bro. Like I live in New York.
It's that him needing that rise from like the 4th, 5th round ADP into that third and upwards towards the 2nd round ADP, where everyone was getting to the end of the season, be like, well, Mike Evans was a value again this year. He outperformed his ADP, and we're like, well, let's throw him at wide receiver 16 again. Wide receiver 16, wide receiver 10 season. Wide receiver 15, wide receiver 10 season. There's some new guys, so wide receiver 18, wide receiver 10 season.
And raise your hand if you've taken advantage of that for years.
And now we're at wide receiver 7 ADP, and we're like, well, why? Well,
I did, and all I mean by that is just first team all pro caliber status, and putting up those type of numbers. If you ask me, I still think 1,000 yards, double-digit touchdowns is entirely possible, but he might be the third wheel in that receiving core. I could see it. You're even adding a Rashad White too in the backfield, who's a tremendous pass catcher out of Arizona State. That guy may be a dark horse for even offensive rookie of the year, if you ask me.
And Evans isn't the healthiest player either. You talk about Godwin's injuries. Evans is always banged up. Now Evans plays through it a lot, but he's banged up a lot during games, and he'll limp around and he'll be, not 100%. So, the risk of injury is certainly there for him too.
All right, drop a dilly for Justin, one of the
Dilly.
OGs.
Dilly.
Justin.
Goddamn dilly.
Albert, sell high on Debo. Maybe, potentially. I don't know if I think I'm writing out Debo. Teams where I've got Debo, I'm keeping him on the roster and trying to take advantage of that championship with him. But we talked a little bit about Debo in the first half of the show as we talked Debo, DK, Terry, and AJ Brown. I almost disrespected AJ Brown myself by forgetting him in that context. Dick, we're up to you. What do you?
I'm going to my home team. Being a Vikings fan myself, I usually try to steer clear of the Vikings players just because they hurt me the most almost every single year. The one time that I had the 101 in my my home league, I remember I got Adrian Peterson, and that was 2012. Was it 2013 when he got suspended? Yep. So I usually try to sell all of them.
That was my welcome into fantasy football.
Yeah. Yeah. Was that
after one game?
Nope. He got suspended before the first game, and then he got activated for one game, or for one day, not one game. He got activated for one day, and I traded him in that one day. It was my second year traded him for Tom Brady and some. I think it was Tom Brady and James White from somebody, and then he got suspended the next day. And the guy was like, "Hey, can we reverse that trade?" I was like, "No." Anyways,
finders keepers.
That's right. That's right.
Got you off guard.
But no, I'm going with Dalvin Cook. I was looking at this from like a dynasty standpoint, but also in redraft too. I think that the Vikings offense is going to have a really, really good year. And I think Dalvin is sitting on a potentially really good year too. Potentially top 5 running back year. The problem with him though is his injuries are an issue, and they just keep happening, and it's something that I'm not going to hold on. I'm not willing to hold on to. So if I can, because he is a big name, being one of the top running backs, I'm selling him where I can. And also, if looking at it from a dynasty aspect, you're looking at the age aspect of him. He's 27 right now. We're nearing the end of his efficiency as a top running back. And I think that Kevin O'Connell's offense is going to bring in enough people to what's the word I'm looking for? It's gonna lull them into a nice sense of security, having an offense actually orchestrated by a offensive head coach rather than Mike Zimmer doing what he does. So yeah, I'm selling Dalvin Cook where I can.
Okay. Like that call. I'm gonna go with, where did it go? I'm gonna go Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's had some. He's got that name value. He's been to a couple Super Bowls now for the Chiefs. He's in a new place, new system. I think you're looking at a guy that's got the name recognition. He's got the value, and will likely go off the board earlier in home leagues where they don't understand the significance of him changing teams and the true downgrade at quarterback, that going from Mahomes to the most accurate passer in the world, and Tua for the Dolphins. No matter what Tyreek says, it's not true.
Yeah, that's a wild take.
It reminds me of that guy in high school who gets broken up with. And,
I don't really like her
anyway. And gets a rebound, and it's like, look at how hot my girlfriend is. Yeah. She's the most beautiful girl in the world, and like
most accurate girl ever.
You went from like a 9 to a 4. You're dating a girl with a knee brace now.
He's just kissing that ass to be his QB's best friend. That's what he's doing. He's kissing that ass, you know?
Right, because he knows he already has the relationship with Waddle, and he wants to be like, hey, look at me. I like you too.
Exactly.
Well, even when, like, honestly, when he said the comment about Tua being the most accurate, like, he's happy having the most accurate quarterback in the league, he kind of had that shit-eating grin on his face.
Yeah.
Like, like he knew he's just bullshitting.
Like, he was just like, he's the most accurate quarterback I've ever seen. And he's like, I don't really mean that. Like, not even like totally bullshitting, you know?
Yeah. So Tyreek Hill is my choice there. And let's wrap up the show. I was hoping Raj was going to be here for this.
I just traded Tyreek
Hill. Let's talk Steelers a little bit. I was hoping Raj was going to be here, our resident Steeler fan. Coach Mike Tomlin said earlier this week, the standard is the standard. The Steelers have been known for their top defense for a long time. It's the Steelers and Ravens always having those consistently strong defenses. From the 70s through the early 2000s, the Steelers had 30-plus years of top 10 defenses in yards allowed. But 2021 was far from that. 2021 had was the worst season for that defense since TJ Watt was drafted. Prior to last year, the team hadn't been worse than 6th in the league with him on the team, and they finished 2021 in 24th place in the league, even with the reigning defensive player of the year. Can the defense bounce back this year? And what will help them or potentially get in their way of Mike Tomlin and Watt returning back to top 10 defense? Dick, we're starting with you.
So I said yes, and I made some note cards here. Just trying to help myself out here, first time and whatnot. And the very first thing I wrote was, "It's Mike fucking Tomlin."
I love
Yes, I totally think that they can make it back to it. I think that they had some nice acquisition or some nice additions. I love Miles Jack coming from the Jaguars, going to the Steelers.
Yeah, very good pickup.
Yeah, I think that overall, and to be completely fair and honest, like I don't. When it comes to the Steelers, like I like the Steelers, but I don't pay attention to the defensive side of the ball as much. I'm more about them with the fantasy aspect of things, so I'm paying more attention to the offensive side of things. But I think that Miles Jack is going to be a much better addition. And we were kind of talking about what things that could that acquisitions that could improve the defense. And with the news that's been going on with Raquan Smith. I don't know if that would necessarily be a thing that they would need, but it'd make things interesting.
As a Bears fan, I pray to God that doesn't happen.
It's a team
fucking nightmare.
The advantage the Steelers do have is that they are not stuck with a top quarterback contract right now. Trubisky is the largest contract. Next, maybe Pickett. Pickett might be like $8 million or something like that. Late first round draft pick, but there's not a bunch of money in that quarterback position. At least not, especially not for the future. I can't remember how the dead cap space was due to Big Ben's contract because they kept restructuring it and pushing things back, waiting for the cap to go up. Because the cap is imaginary, as we all know. So it'll be interesting to see that the Steelers do have some wiggle room to make a deal happen to make sure Smith gets his money.
Please don't do it.
But that's a really
Chicago.
It was like, please stop talking this into existence.
If you want to keep me out of a straight jacket, Chicago, you will not pull the trigger on that trade. If you want to keep me out of a straight,
you had Allen Robinson just walk away in free agency.
I know, right? It's getting worse. So much worse now.
And you basically have two first round picks and your quarterback, and he might just be a total bust.
Yeah,
and not wanting
shit. I won't deal with that blasphemy from the future Hall of Fame GOAT in Justin Fields. God damn it!
The GOAT for being mad.
It's funny. Even his rookie year, which was, I'm be real, it was underwhelming. He's still probably putting up like top 5 QB numbers in Bears franchise history. That's how awful our Bears QB history is. Seriously, like we've never had a 30 touchdown passer in NFL in our franchise history, nor 4,000 yard passer in our franchise.
He could potentially hit both. If you add rushing and receiving, he'll hit 4,030.
Seriously.
And that's why they're so excited for him. Look at what they've had.
Yeah, exactly.
How was Jay Cutler your starting quarterback for so long?
Dude, that's just a fever dream for me thinking about that.
I saw a TikTok where it was nightmare. Like, tell me the worst quarterback to ever like have like a long like career, like the most average career, but then just be bad. Jay Cutler. 8 years.
He's the poster child. He's on.
And then the beautiful tweet of pending a completion of a physical, Jay Cutler will become a Dolphin, and that tweet would be a whole lot cooler if the NFL wasn't a thing.
Honestly, I think of him as just I don't even want to think about that. It's just nightmare invoking just even thinking about that. So Jay Cutler, No, it's totally fine. No, it's just oh man, Jay Cutler was such a horror. Like everyone was talking about like how good he was going to be, like we're going to be Super Bowl bound and all that stuff. Like no, you're not looking at this. You're absolutely looking at with an optimistic outlook and just see what happens. And then obviously he shat the bed regularly. So it was awful, man. Being a Jay Cutler, having to have him as their starting quarterback.
All right, so you don't have to talk about him anymore. Yeah. Tell us what you think about the Steelers defense.
Yes. Getting way off topic here. No, the Steelers defense, I think it has a good chance of coming back, honestly, to that elite fashion of play. Like honestly, I think they're coming in with a new defensive coordinator this year, and Terrell Austin, who has some history with the Detroit Lions for one thing. He had some great years there. I think that was a great pickup considering Keith Butler, departing the team, previously being their defensive coordinator. I think that the thing that comes about with the Steelers, they kind of got away from a little bit of their identity last year. They stopped. They didn't play quite as much man coverage. They were very heavily leaning towards a zone coverage team last year compared to previous years, where they were using a lot more cover 3 schemes coming down the pike within games. And I think now that they're establishing a little more comfort this offseason with some of the guys that are returning, and even getting certain guys back that are healthy too, that will bode well for them. I know Devin Bush missed a couple games last year. There's a lot of pressure on him for one thing, because he certainly has not lived up to the expectations compared to where. A lot of people said like he and Roquan could be the 2-star linebackers in the league, but it's easily, in my opinion, been Roquan throughout the entirety of both of these guys' careers. He came out the year after, but nonetheless, they were 2 of the more highly touted linebackers, when they were coming out of their draft classes. And Devin Bush has taken a couple steps back in recent years. And in part that's been because of injuries, but also he's just mistimed in helping stuff the run. So I think they could get back. It's just a matter of developing comfort within Terrell Austin's approach. Mika Fitzpatrick getting back to previous Mika Fitzpatrick, because even though he had a decent year last year, it wasn't like vintage Mika Fitzpatrick like it was in 2019 or even 2020. So those will be some big keys. TJ Watt's obviously Defensive Player of the Year there from last year. He's going to still put up the same level of production. The one thing I do wonder, though, is how they're going to overcome the second year of losing Stephon Tuitt, who retired this offseason. Can they find a way to overcome that hurdle yet again? Because last year his presence was missed. This was a guy who had 11 plus sacks in 2020. Last year not playing at all and then retiring. Can they overcome that hump? Can Larry Ogunjobi, who they just recently signed, who I wish my Bears would have been able to keep their hands on, but unfortunately due to a failed physical, we couldn't. I think the Steelers landed a huge hit with that one. So can he pick up some of the slack and accumulate, be a significant difference maker in the trenches for them? Those will be some big keys. Devin Bush and Larry Ogunjobi, and the dark horse and Terrell Edmonds as well in that secondary. Can he have a career resurgence to where he proves he should stay in Pittsburgh as opposed to potentially moving on, which is what it looks like it's going to be if he does not live up to the hype this year?
All right,
I like
thanks,
it.
David. JB?
I like it. And you guys have hit on a lot of the names that I wanted to talk about. Obviously we know about Watt and Cam Hayward, Minka Fitzpatrick, but Dick Sickles brought up Miles Jack. You brought up Ogunjobi and Bush, and you also brought up Terrell Austin, which was huge because the coaches make a big difference. But I'm going to bring up Brian Flores.
Oh, you
Brian
son
Flores.
I like it.
I thought it was getting to me. I got sniped. I got tape sniped.
Brian Flores is a linebackers coach and a senior defensive assistant or something like that. A linebackers coach. You just talked about how important it was for Devin Bush to take that step forward, right? Now he's got Brian Flores as his linebackers coach. Miles Jack underneath Brian Flores. That's huge. That's something that, you don't look that deep. You don't peel the onion back as far, Dick was talking before about how, I look at the offensive side of the board. I don't pay that much attention to defenses. I pay attention to, what I'm looking for in fantasy, right? How many people in home leagues all across the country do the same thing? They look at box scores. They look at sheets. They look at offensive players. They don't look at the defensive side of the ball, let alone look at who the linebackers coach is and how it's going to affect the defense, which is then going to affect the offensive players that they play against, especially in their division. So when you talk about can this defense have a resurgence, well, it can't get much worse than it was last year, right? Especially with all the talent on this team. So with all those players we mentioned, with the coaches that we mentioned, it has to get better. I can't see how it doesn't.
Absolutely. I think Brian Flores was the reality of how quickly he got the job after he announced the lawsuit against the league for the potential wrongful termination from the Dolphins and the whole mess of that was down in Miami. And we didn't get to talk about that last week of all the suspensions and the loss of picks and the things that were going on around him. And he's kind of stuck in the middle of it. Stuck with a quarterback he didn't want, wanting either either Watson or Brady or anyone else but Tua.
Yep.
And now he calls it out as a race thing and says that he's had interviews where decisions were already made ahead of time and they were just taking the interview to try and get the picks.
Yep.
And often that would have led to a guy being blackballed from the league until that's sorted out. And Mike Tomlin's
like, nope.
One of the
Nope,
few
like,
black
yeah,
coaches
fuck
in the
that
league
noise. Yeah.
says,
Mhm.
I got you.
Yeah.
Come here. Take this job. It's not a head coach job. I can't give you a head coaching job. I'm not giving you my job.
Yeah.
But come here.
But here's the
Stay in the
thing,
league.
Pat. If he takes that job, right, and let's say this defense doesn't improve, and Pittsburgh is a bad team, now you have a former head coach waiting in the wings. If they decide, hey, we have to use Tomlin as a scapegoat, it's a perfect situation for him.
There's also been talks of Tomlin shaping someone to take over after him, regardless of how well or badly they perform. Tomlin's he's getting into his 50s, but I don't know if he wants to be someone that coaches into his 60s and early 70s.
Yeah.
But again, that's 10, 20 years down the road. But in 5 years, what is Mike Tomlin going to want to do? Is he going to want to still be on the sideline at the age of 55, having already done so much? Or is he going to want to pass it off and build his name and watch the legacy of Mike Tomlin and the Mike Tomlin coaching tree potentially be a thing?
Yeah.
We have all these. We talk about coaching trees occasionally on this show. But could he be a guy to build that? There hasn't been many in his offensive, but he's built offenses around Big Ben. He's built top running backs, top wide receivers in Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. He took James Conner and made the cancer survivor something special to watch from the running back position.
Yep.
He's done quite a bit. And
it all started here, baby. It all started here.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Well, he learned from Tony Dungy. He learned a lot from Tony Dungy.
There were a lot of great coaches that learned under the Tony Dungy tree.
Yeah.
And so
honestly, it's amazing. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I would say you've got a lot of above 500 teams that he's coached, and that's up there with Bill Belichick for most consecutive seasons.
Yeah,
it's got to be.
Yeah, he's never had a below 500 season, man. I think you got to go back to like 2003, the last time they fell below 500. I want to say. I'm worried though that this could be the year where that comes to an end. But if it does happen, I don't think it'll be because of the defense. Because even last year, with how they struggled, they were still number one in sacks. You know, I think there's still some silver linings to note.
There's one last thing I'll say, and then we'll get to Dick's take again. If this offense can stay on the field, it's something that this defense needs. I can't remember what the time of possession was in the NFL for 2021. It could have been great for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. They were amongst the lowest in the league last year in time of possession. Second, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're in the bottom third of the league in time of possession, which means that defense is going to be out in the field for too long because there's too many 3-and-outs, there's too many short drives. And that wears on a team. So if you got a quarterback who can sustain drives, and Trubisky can do that, Trubisky's not going to, when he scores, he's not going to make those just two big plays in that 40-second drive. He's going to sustain a 6-minute drive as long as he doesn't go 3-and-out.
Right.
And that'll...
It's going to be two big plays. One for like 3 yards and the other one going the other way.
Yep. But it's not going to look the same as like a Patrick Mahomes where it was a 70-yard bomb to Tyreek Hill, and all of a sudden the defense is back out there again, and all right, hold it down for another 10 to 12 plays.
Right.
You got a quick breather. So hopefully that helps him out. Dick, back to you.
Oh, I was just going to further pile on the amazingness that is Tomlin, and just I didn't realize how long he'd been in the league. It's been 15 years that he's been a head coach.
Mhm.
Like that does not happen, and other than Belichick.
Seriously.
Mike Tomlin came into the league as a head coach at the age of 35.
Yeah.
Yep.
15 years ago, like that wasn't happening. That younger guys weren't coming into the league as coaches.
Right. Yep.
Let alone as a black man.
I mean, it's like if I think he's like the same age as Jerome Bettis, who like retired shortly before Tomlin came into power. So it's like having Jerome Bettis aged person, when you think about it, who just recently played coaching your team, and it's just been nothing but success then, And it's crazy too to even think about the AFC North with John Harbaugh as well, who's been coaching almost 15 years and still going very strong,
Yep.
So
I love that kind of loyalty in a team. Kind of going off the rails a little bit here, it's a little tangent, but like giving your head coach the reins enough to be able to let them figure things out and give them the time to try to actually build their team and stuff like that. Like, I love it.
Well, and that's why the Ravens and Steelers are the two of the most successful teams in the league.
Right. Right. Yep.
You said he's been a head coach for 15 years, right?
Yeah.
Almost
2007.
Yeah.
So he was younger than Kyle Shanahan was.
Yeah.
When Kyle Shanahan became head coach. And we talk about how young Kyle Shanahan was.
Yep.
So I think that's a great way to end the show tonight, guys.
Yeah.
JB, can you start us with some outros?
Yeah, man.
Tell the people where they can find you.
For sure. You can find my work over at Razzball. You could also find me on AaronTorresOnline.com. I'll be kicking back up the DFS Flash this year. I'll be doing it in written form on Razzball, and I'll be doing it in audio form on Aaron Torres. Also got the Fantasy Besties show coming back soon. It's a great show, great group of people. Kevin Tompkins, Lindellians, Andrew Cooper, Jordan Loop, and myself all met through Scott Fishbowl a couple years ago. Just got to talking, formed a podcast out of it. We have a ton of fun. So, they're all at the expo right now, meeting for the first time. It's so cool that like we've become best friends. Like we talk literally every day through text message, and we've never met each other. So like I'm so jealous that they're all like hanging out right now. But I got to hang out with you guys, and I appreciate that. And Pat, I'm glad I saw your message and appreciate you having me on. Always love kicking it with the Rumboyz when I can. Glad Robbie popped on for a second. It was good chatting with you two guys. I haven't got to talk to you yet. So good stuff. Good stuff.
Absolutely. Nice to meet you, man.
Thanks, JB.
You can catch me at David G Sports TV for all my random sports takes and all my bitching and moaning about the Chicago Bears this upcoming season. I also can catch my podcast at TBQ Sports as well, where we hosted similar type of shows, what they do over here, Rumboyz. On Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, we go live generally. Wednesdays or Thursdays. It depends on what our schedule allows. But, we talk all things NFL. So just catch our channel over there and, or follow my personal account, whichever or,
Yeah. I'm at Gingerbeard Man. The A is a 3 instead of an A. Otherwise, you can find my stuff, some of the work that I've been doing at draftinterference.com or at DIF Football on Twitter. And you can find my TikToks either on the draftinterference.com or else at Draft Interference on YouTube.
And can we give Dick Sickles a round of applause for his first podcast? Yes. Good job, my man.
It's your first podcast?
Hey,
that's awesome.
I wanted to say, too, thank you all for having me here for my first one. This was a blast, especially with the three of you. You guys have been great. Truly, this has been awesome.
You've been great, man. That was a great first podcast.
Dude.
You always remember your first.
You're a fucking natural, man. I didn't even know this was your first one. I never would have guessed that shit. That's crazy.
Yeah. No, that's my first one.
Awesome, dude. You kicked ass, man.
You've got an open invitation to the Rumboyz. Yeah. You're welcome here anytime, and we would absolutely love to have you on as we get into football season and really start kicking it into gear. This place gets hyped on Friday nights, and it's a ton of fun when we can fill out 9 or 10 people in the show, and we're trying to rush people through their takes to and there's just arguments and there's drinking and, then,
Oh,
and
yeah.
like people are ready to drive across country to throw hands because someone said the Chiefs were finishing in last place this year.
The show's all about taming violence. That's what it comes down to. We tame the violence down, So
You can find me at St. Patrick FF on Twitter. But I have more than enough Twitter followers. I don't need this many. But please go follow these three people, these three lovely people. They're all under-followed for the amount of content and joy that they bring into my life and my Twitter ramblings. So with all said and done, cheers to me. Cheers to you. And all the Rum boys and girls. What it do. Dilly dilly.
Dilly dilly.